Today's guest started his working life joining the Navy as an aircraft engineer, leaving in 2005. Following a string of other trades, he then moved into the fitness industry in 2008, first with Virgin Active and most recently Pure Gym via other operators. Following a personal struggle with mental health, teaching resilience to young people and developing the mindset triangle, he is a huge advocate for supporting mental health in all forms, releasing and publishing his book of the same name in 2018. He's rugby mad and a dress-up expert. We have Mr. Stu Baker. How are you?
Mate? It feels like I'm on This Is Your Life. Where's Michael Astor?
Behind you somewhere, probably. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, you? Living the furlough dream.
I know. Tell me about it. It's just going on and on and on at the minute, isn't it? It seems. But yeah, all good over here. Glad to hear you well. We've not caught up yet, have we? So it's good to see you. How's things? How's lockdown treating you? I know you've been...
Yeah, good, mate. It's sort of a roller coaster. It's sort of a roller coaster, as you know. Like I live with mental illness as such, or poor mental health. So it's been some, like anyone really. Everyone has a peak and trough in their mental illness. I think mine's just on the recreational drug. So I'll go like too high or like too low. So yeah, it's been good, and it's a positive thing, isn't it? I've reflected and took the good out of it. It can be all doom and gloom, especially if you look at the media.
Yeah.
But, I think going back to work, a lot of people are going to be reflecting and taking, is that really important? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And do I really need to focus on that? And does it really matter that I don't do that by Wednesday?
Yeah.
And focus more on kids and family and stuff?
Yeah. You said before we came on then that you've turned into a professional cyclist now, and you're enjoying that.
Well, the way I see it, I love cycling. I'm getting paid 80% to not be in the gym, so I'm officially a professional cyclist.
Getting paid for cycling, it makes sense.
Yeah. How far did you go? What did you say? How far did you travel just a minute ago when you said it to me?
Did 100 mile on Saturday.
Yeah. How long did it take you?
6 hours 20. It was sort of a last minute thing. I do a fair bit of charity work through mental health. And I'm doing Pedal the Premiership again next year. And the charity got me in contact with some strength and conditioning coaches from Wasps Rugby. And because they were meant to do the Birmingham Velo at the weekend, obviously got cancelled due to COVID, they were still going to do it and raise money. So I got in contact and said, do you fancy me just jumping on for a few miles? And it ended up, after a conversation, that I'd meet him at his house and do the full 100 and then go home.
Fair play. I'll probably do that in a car, just about, I reckon.
Yeah.
About as close as I get. But no, that's amazing. Fair play to you, mate. Because cycling's a big thing, isn't it? And you mentioned Pedal the Premiership there. Last year, wasn't it, that you jumped into that? So just talk us through that. What was that in aid of? How did that come about? And I know you've, like we said, rugby mad, and you've made quite a few contacts through that. So go for it, mate.
Yeah, so I got injured I had to retire from rugby in 2010. 2009, I snapped my ACL. I was PTing at the time. It was really hard to try and teach someone to squat and with only one leg. Do you know what I mean? So I gave up, and that's when my mental health hit rock bottom, because I didn't have that release at the weekend of that fight. I always say my rugby was like sort of my self-harm when I was playing, because I could just go full on for 80 minutes and not worry about it. So cycling's been massive, really. The best quote I've ever read and will always say is that only a cyclist understands what a dog feels like with its head out the window of a car. And it's just thinking time. Like 4 hours on the bike, I just constantly think for 4 hours. And there is that element of pushing and looking at the numbers and making sure I'm working hard. But it's I reflect on quite a lot on my bike, and it's probably my best therapy I can have.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Pedal Premiership is, I've always done challenges. From when I gave up rugby, I've sort of done challenges to raise money. And last year, me and my mate put a head together, and both rugby mad, and 12 men a day in the UK take their own life. Still a stupid number. And there's 12 rugby clubs. So we just said, let's make this challenge up, and we just cycled to every Premiership rugby club in 6 days, pushing men's mental health and men's suicide figures and stuff. And like you say, we've got some great names that did the videos for us. We've got a few pro players meeting us, and we're doing it again next year. So yeah, it'll be good.
So it's definitely not put you off then.
No. It's just, do you know what, mate? As a rugby fan, to cycle like 4 days, we're doing about 100 mile a day. We were to do 4 days, and then in the middle of that 4 day, you get pitch side at Twickenham, and then 3.5 days seem irrelevant because I'm a rugby fan at Twickenham doing a selfie at the sticks. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, really good. I think that's probably going to be the theme of the day, really, as we touched on there, like your journey and how you've managed to move through that, and then the book that you've released. So, yeah, over to you, mate. If you want to start and as close to the start as you can get, then that would be great.
Yeah, well, I don't really know when it started or why it started. I've sort of blocked out my whole 20s of being like sort of not wide upright, but never knew why and when. And trouble is, back in 2000, I was in the Navy and I was playing quite high level rugby, so it wasn't an area that I were talking. Because if I went to a pub and told me, mate, that I just played rugby with, I cried myself to sleep last night, it just time to man up and get a pint. Do you know what I mean? And the same as the Navy as well. The Navy was very like, they say jump, you ask how high, or you never question anything. And it was that, and then down to no education. And back in the day in 80s and 90s, nobody knew what depression was. Nobody knew what self-harm was, or they did, but it was in their own confined, their own home. I didn't the suicidal thoughts that I was having. I just thought every bloke had them. You just don't talk about them. And there's sort of like evidence to suggest that a tablet that the Navy made me take, like an anti-malaria tablet's got like bad GGs in it, and it's been proven to make people really ill mentally. But I've sort of gone past that stage now of trying to blame something. It's just the way I am, and it's the way I've got to live with it. If someone put a hand on me and said, yeah, it's my fault, sorry, would it change anything? Probably not. I'd still be living as I am now. So yeah, it got to 2009 really when I gave up rugby, and like I said, that was my self harm. When I didn't play rugby and I was injured, for instance, I would self harm. But when I was playing rugby, I wouldn't. And I've only learned that the last few years reflecting, and it was because I was a small angry scrum half going around the pitch trying to start fights with people, and I was the angry little guy, and that's when it went and hit rock bottom, and I was going from job to job, and I was still in the fitness industry or just started. I was going from job to job, couldn't keep one down, couldn't get out of bed in the morning, angry, just all sorts. Like I used to call it the 10-stone duvet. When you're lying in bed and the 10-stone duvet's on you and you can't move. And it's really hard to explain for someone that hasn't had that depression of a Monday morning or whatever morning. So I got dragged to the doctors under duress, obviously, because I'm a hard, massive man that won't talk about the feelings. And I sat at the doctors, and it just came out. And I just told him all about my self-harm, told him all about my suicidal thoughts, how I was feeling, blah, 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 blah. And he turned around and he said, to be honest, Mr. Baker, I just think you need to cheer up.
Wow.
Like, cheers, mate. Thank you for that. I never thought that one.
Yeah.
So I stormed out the doctors, and then I got dragged back again 2 weeks later. And fortuitously, she was brilliant. She put me on a course of, I didn't want to take tablets, but she put me on a course of tablets, which, truth to be told, I never really took them that well. It was still like I seen them in the morning and thought, nah, I won't, whatever. But then I went through some talking therapy called psychodynamic therapy. And it was quite hard hitting talking therapy that closed a lot of doors from my childhood. And like my granddad died when I was 18, he was my dad and stuff like that. It closed a lot of doors. And then it's just been sort of a learning curve from there, really. So I've had like 10 years taking tablets. I stopped taking them about 2 weeks before Boris said we're in lockdown, which probably wasn't the best time to stop. But yeah, it's just a learning curve, and my depression or whatever it is sort of develops. So I just need to develop with it and learn that, for instance, alcohol. For the whole of my 20s, alcohol was my best mate. And whenever I had a bad day, I'd have a pint. But the trouble is my personality is all or everything. So I'm either not drinking or I'm having 10 pints. And the older I've got, the worse I deal with alcohol. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. And it's been a bit of a jubilant last 3 years, 4 years.
Do you know, going back to, going back to when you said you went to the doctor for the first time?
Yeah.
And it was that time when I just told him everything. So he said everything, and he kind of just told you to man up, go home. And then you said about getting dragged back. Who was it that called you back in, or did you tell yourself to go back in?
My ex-wife. She convinced me to go the second time.
Because that could have gone a totally different way, that couldn't it? With that doctor saying to you, "See you later."
Yeah, completely.
Just opened up fully. That you've never done that before, and then for a professional, to say "See you later," so it's probably a blessing in disguise that your ex-wife said, "Get back, go and see somebody else," and then that person put you on the track or on the path or whatever.
It's
crazy to hear, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad, mate. I look back and it still seems a bit surreal. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I haven't been great since 2009. Like, I still went from job to job, still like had peaks and troughs, still drank far too much. I never spoke I still never spoke about it, even though I've been diagnosed it. But I ended up blogging, and it was just sort of a vent. And that's what I tell people now, is just to communicate. It doesn't matter how you communicate. It doesn't have to be face-to-face or text or anything. You could write a letter to someone and then screw it up and throw it in the bin. But because you've had that outlet, rather than being stuck in there, it works. And mine was blogging. And I used to blog about exactly how I felt. I never used to spell check it or grammar police or anything went through it. It was just press enter, and someone randomly in like Africa would read it. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, that was my sort of my event. Yeah.
Would you say that's something that you would almost, I know it's hard to sit and advise other people if we don't know completely where they're coming from or what their background is, or what's been your sort of ways of maybe putting that across? Because I know you do public speaking and stuff. How do you advise people to start to think that sort of way or find their way through that?
It's just, communication is key. You have to talk about it. And in this day and age with the social media and our phones, you've got communication tools everywhere where you sit. So there's a new app out there called Yapper, which is really good. It's a social media app, but solely based around mental illness. So you can put on there and use different colours for different feelings. It's really good. A text message is good, but it's that first word. It's that first sentence that you make will carry on for the paragraph. The first time you write that sentence, you'll just keep on writing, because it's like a waterfall as such. Do you know what I mean? As soon as the first little trickle of water goes over that cliff, then the rest just follow it. And it's exactly the same as communicating. Like, I spent 15 years not talking about it. Now I can't shut up about it.
So, like, pretty much what you've said there, isn't it? As soon as you start, and everything else just follows on from there. Not, I suppose, easier is not the right phrase to use, but is it maybe a case where you feel a bit more comfortable the more that you speak about it, or does it give you a bit more clarity, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's for me now. It's just a matter of life. If you wake up in the morning, this is the way society is at the moment. If you wake up in the morning, you've got a sniffly nose, sore throat, and a bit of a cough. You think, I've got a cold. I'll go and get a hanky. I'll go and get my inhaler or whatever, and you carry on with your day. Why can't we wake up in the morning, feel a bit shit, and you've had a bad couple of days? Why can't we talk about that? You'd walk into the kitchen and say to your missus or to your husband or whatever, God, I got a sore throat this morning, feel a bit dodgy. Why can't you walk in the kitchen and say, I'm feeling really low today? It's just something that society hasn't allowed us to do. It's getting better now, don't get me wrong, but for me, it's getting that across. And like when I do public speaking, you wouldn't break every bone in your body and then crawl to the hospital, A&E, to get it sorted. You do it the first time when you break your finger or whatever. So why do we have to wait until we're in crisis point to then get help? Yeah. We shouldn't. It should just be a normal conversation that we have.
Yeah, the psychology of that's probably a whole different kettle of fish, isn't it? And they're like how we're conditioned as we grow up, who we look to for
completely, yeah.
The level of communication that they, like you said there, I think historically, not to go gender specific or whatever, but I think historically you tend to find with men and with males that talking isn't as easy as it comes to a lot of people. I know we've said that before on a podcast when we had Hinchy on, didn't we, Mark? That was something that he said he found really, really tough because he had to have that persona of I'm the breadwinner, I'm the provider, I'm the strong one, I'm this, I'm that. Is that something that you found a bit of a struggle as well, or?
Oh, completely, mate. In my 20s, I went through the transition of leaving. I never thought anything was up with me, but I went through the transition of leaving the Navy. And it's the same as I talk to professional sportsmen now, and it's the same sort of transition. It's going from a life when you're told exactly what you're doing, week in, day out, week in, week out. You're getting up, you're training, you're doing this, or you're going to be at work at 6, you're fixing that aircraft, it's going flying, then you can go have something to eat and go to bed. I left the Navy not even having a clue what water rates were. I didn't know that you had to pay for water. I just thought it was free. You turn the tap on, it come out, you don't have to pay for it. So it was a massive learning curve for me. But then I had 3 kids, or my third one was being born. I had to pay rent. I had to try and keep down a civvy job, which was just like speaking to civvy people as well, which was weird. Do you know what I mean? And it was massive for me, yeah.
I think you hear that as well quite a lot in terms of people that have come out of the forces, that it's almost reintegrating into society, isn't it? And that's a big, big leap. Do you speak to many people that have found that struggle or that transition? I know my uncle, he was in the forces, he came out and within a year he was going back in some sort of role, just because that transition into it. He wasn't in a regiment or anything like that, but in a role, something along the lines of clothing and ordering clothing and stuff for the forces. So it's not nothing exciting, but he had that need to be back in that environment around similar people to him that had lived that military lifestyle. So
completely, mate. There's so many, like, just look at the stats of the homelessness in London. 60% are ex-forces or something ridiculous like that, just because they can't make that transition. Back then there was, well, don't get me wrong, I left, now 15 years ago, and the resettlement was good then. Like they paid for my whole of my fitness career, and you could use that money up to 10 years after leaving. So it was really good 15 years ago. It was before that the resettlement was rubbish. You put your notice in, it was just basically hand your ID card in your gas mask and see you later, mate. And I know now you can do civic qualifications and you can literally walk out into a job. So a lot is getting put into that now, because obviously they can see that it is very hard. It's very hard. I still carry on traits now about timekeeping. Do you know what I mean? I when someone says, "Oh, make it 7-ish," I'm like, "What's that? Is that before? Is that after? Is that 2 minutes past? Is that like? Is it 7? If it's 7, I'll get there for 7." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think. What do you think the big thing? Do you think it is literally just because everything is laid out and the structure is there for you, and you almost haven't got a choice but to follow it, have you then? And then all of a sudden you're in a position where you're like, actually, I've got a bit of freedom and I'm in control of that now. Does that become overbearing, or?
Yeah, no, it's when your basic training is solely down to breaking you and then remolding you to the way that you should think. So it's being told what to do, and they know that you can do it. That's why we've got the best armed force in the world, because they do that. They know that if they say go and do that, then 30 people in front of them will run off and go and do that. So it's just that transition of having that freedom, I suppose, in civil life.
Yeah, very, very, very different, isn't it? Like you said, and I think I think it's interesting because a lot of people and a lot of PTs that we tend to work with, it's almost the opposite, like time management and structure, and even with clients, like that's probably the first thing that you look to provide, isn't it, as a PT when you go and speak to clients, is giving them some sort of structure, or allowing them rather preferably to create the structure that they're going to be able to stick to. So it's mad how it's two opposites, but like you say, if you come away from that, and I suppose even with clients, when they start to come away, if we've not done a job where we've given them the habits to be able to stick to that sort of routine and those rhythms, people do go off the rails a little bit, don't they? And then that compounds itself, and then you end up with situations where people aren't maybe sometimes even able to see a way out of the position that they're in.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. That's why the force is so good, because they need people to do as they're told, because they can get things done. And especially in a war situation, if you're in a war situation on board ship and some and shit's kicking off, the people in charge that are making those very difficult decisions, when they've made them, they know they've got someone underneath them that will pass it down for them to do their job very well and professionally, to put us in the best position in that horrible situation of war. Do you know what I mean? It's the way it has to be.
Yeah, you can't say, yeah, I'll go and take those barracks at 7ish, can you?
Exactly, mate. Exactly. You can't say, "Oh, I'll do that in a minute, boss." You know what I mean? It just doesn't. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, that sort of, obviously over the last few years, giving you a bit more of a way of maybe reflecting and understanding your journey up to the point where you're at now. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a massive learning curve, I suppose. But I've still got traits from the armed forces that I think are really good in everyday life, like your time management, like you mentioned, and respect for the people above you in work. They're there for a reason, so it's the respect to have for them and stuff. And I think you get for a single lad. I always say, for a single lad, the Navy was brilliant, and it probably still is brilliant for a single lad coming out of college to sail around the world. I fixed fighter jets on an aircraft carrier, sail around the world. Do you know what I mean? It was like a real life Top Gun, but without a half naked volleyball.
Yeah.
What 18-year-old do you know that will be on the Indian Ocean, like fixing a fast jet, taking off, and then, like, you know what I mean? They're surreal and brilliant.
Did the transition from going from the Navy into PT, did that was that kind of similar? Because I know you like the structure, and like we was talking about time management and stuff. Could you have incorporated that from what your learnings from being in the Navy and stuff?
Yeah, definitely, especially with writing programs and being sort of regimented in that sense of keeping hold of clients. Obviously, there's a whole different element of like I struggled, I suppose, when I first started PTing, because it's that personable bit. It's like being a salesman, isn't it? And selling your products. I found it really hard because I didn't have someone on my shoulder saying exactly what I needed to do. It was all like sort of self-development, doing sales courses to understand the psychology. There we go. Behind selling and stuff like that. So there was a lot to learn, but also I think the traits that I've kept now, I think have been fortuitous for my career and the things that I've done.
Definitely. You tend to hear as well of quite a fair few people that have been in the forces tend to move into the fitness industry potentially because of the physical work they have to do, and they kind of find a bit of a love for it in there. Even for me, something I looked at originally. I was going to go into the forces as a PTI. 17 years old, that was what I said I was going to do for years and years and years and years. And for one reason or the other, it didn't materialise. But the forces have always fascinated me, and I think there's many good things that go on within there, like you said there, and the traits and stuff that you come out with. Some of them are great, but then, like you said again, getting used to civvy life can be a whole different kettle of fish with some people and some personalities based on what they've been through, I suppose. Like tours, you can only imagine what it's like to go and do a tour of a war zone and come back and then have to try pop the shop to get your milk. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
completely. And I never was in that situation. I was on a big floating airport. Do you know what I mean? So I was never in like the desert in Afghan or the Gulf or anything like that. So I count myself lucky in that sense that that's even bigger transition, and that's not even leaving. That's just being in that situation, and then, like you say, being at home. Two completely different things, and that's why people can't deal with being back at home. They just want to go back out there again because they know what they're doing. That's what they're getting paid for.
Yeah, 100%. So that's that kind of that journey. Your journey led you to come up with the mindset triangle, didn't it? Do you want to talk us through that and your reasons behind that and how it came about?
Yeah, it came from I was doing the blogging when I was just ranting and just coming out with different things, and unfortunately, while I was still silent, still wasn't talking about it. I was still affiliated to the rugby club and stuff like that, and my mate took his own life, and he's my very good friend of mine's brother, but we're still in the same circle, and their mum and dad were really close to me and stuff, and nobody knew. In fact, he got in the inquest after his death, it got put down as an accident because there was no evidence of suicide, of thinking about it, searching it in Google, anybody talking like evidence and stuff, which really hit me hard actually, because obviously I had them thoughts. The family, were all going down to London to do a walk called Walking Out of Darkness. It's a brilliant walk. It's a 10-mile walk around London, like South Bank, North Bank. You go across everywhere, raising money for this charity, and everyone wears the same T-shirt, and it's all about suicide awareness and talking about suicide. So at the time, I was doing the Birmingham half marathon warm-ups and the 10K warm-ups up on the Cherry Picker in Broad Street. So I rang up the owner of this charity and said, look, I'm a warm-up guy. If you want me to warm up the walkers, then feel free. I'll do it for free. I'm down there anyway. And he said, well, I've already got someone, but I've just read your blog and I'm quite inspired. Would you like to do a talk pre-walk? I was like, yeah. Put the phone down. I was like, what the am I going to talk about? You know what I mean? And at this point, I'd never done public speaking. It was only ever, the only time I stood up in an audience was probably at school when I'm getting told off for something in assembly. And the cherry picker thing, even though you're in front of 30,000 people, you're just dancing around a cherry pick. It's what you get paid for, isn't it? Yeah. So I went down, I thought, well, I'm going to talk. And within my blog, I came up with a concept called the mindset triangle. And it's the way I have to live. And it works exactly the same as a fire triangle. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It works exactly the same as a fire triangle. So you have, obviously with a fire triangle, you have oxygen, heat, and fuel to keep that fire burning. For me, to keep a strong mindset, I need exercise, sleep, and healthy eating. And it works for me. And then, I reflect back on it as well. So, on a Monday morning when I mentioned about the 10-stone duvet, I can reflect back on that and think, well, look at your triangle, Stu. So I look back and think, well, okay, Saturday night you had 4 beers, a pizza, and you stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning watching a boxing fight. No wonder you're feeling shit. Now get out of bed and get to work. So I can reflect back at it, but then work with it as well. Don't get me wrong; it doesn't cure my depression or doesn't cure my any mental illness, but it puts you in the best place possible to be able to work with it and fight with it and live with it. So I did that talk, and then it sort of snowballed from there, really. And I got picked up to do other talks and stuff, and then now my PT business went from what it was called urban fitness, then I went into the mindset triangle. So I do more of the mindset as well as the physical side, which I think is really important, because as we know and we spoke, Dan, is that your physical health and your mental health are exactly the same. If one peaks, then the other one will. If one will drop, then the other one will. So they need to work in unison with each other.
Yeah, it's really, really great concept, and the fact that you've built on that now and built it out, and the book that you've released, etc., is really, 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 really good, and a credit to you for even having the knowledge to come up with that, mate. Because I think what it allows you to do is just reflect, isn't it? And I think that's so important. Self-awareness is massive, and having that ability to sit there and say, right, what actually has set me off to put in this position? And there's a lot of people out there that really, really struggle with that, and whatever form of mental illness they may have, as in level or severity of it. Not that I'm an expert or know how that works on a sliding scale, but I think if you have just got that, something that allows you to reflect and think, right, what's caused me to get into this position? How can I now identify that, work with it, and then make the steps I need to move forward? It's like Mel Robbins has the 5-second rule, doesn't she, where she counts herself down from 5, and then she uses that to then go and do it. So she almost programs herself to say, right, after those 5 seconds, regardless of what's going on, I'm going to start, I'm going to make that first step. And
it's a lifestyle. Like I say, you don't have it's a good lifestyle to have a balance of all of it. And I'm very much a believer of everything's in moderation. Do you know what I mean? If you want a pint of beer or a glass of wine on a Friday night, have it because you enjoy it. But everybody knows it's not complicated science. If you have a pizza and 4 beers every night for 5 nights, you're probably going to feel shit the next day, physically and mentally. And if you take something away from someone's diet that they enjoy, then you're going to crave it. Instantly, you're going to crave it because you've been taking it away. But then as soon as you have it, that you're not meant to have it, then you'll feel guilty. And then that's detrimental to the mental health as well. So it's
resentment as well off the back of that.
oh, completely, mate. And it's just all, like I say, moderation. And it's I don't, in the book and the way we go about it, like Henriette, who my partner is now, we started writing the book at the beginning and then end up being together at the end. Random, completely different podcast. Probably not for you, Dan, but someone else. Our whole ethos around it is that the exercise bit, you don't have to sign up for a marathon. Just like the things that we say I do in public speaking is like when you go Tesco's and when you go Asda, when you drive there, we all go down the first line towards the doors and try and park in the space nearest the doors. Why don't you park in the other corner and put in an extra 1,000 steps there and back? And then if you get a trolley with a dodgy wheel, it gives you a cold core workout on the way back to the car. But little bits like that make a massive impact in your physical and mental health by just doing those extra little things. Take the stairs instead of a lift. If you go, I said to the, I had a mental health awareness week this month. I had a Zoom call with lots of PAs and majority all female. I was like, well, okay, then if you go shopping at a bull ring, don't use an escalator because the stairs at that end and the stairs at that end, you're going to put in an extra 3,000 steps just walking from Next to Forever 21 or whatever. So it's just little tweaks like that make a massive impact. Like diet, for instance, people haven't got time to make their packed lunch, but they have time to walk to Boots and buy a meal deal and walk back. It's little things like that people just need to change their mindset of.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about that, don't we, with PTs, and I think the difficulty that you get is when people are in that routine, like the day and age that we live in, everything has to be convenient, everything has to be accessible straight away. So a lot of it for me is how they see that time that they're spending. Does that make sense? Like whether they prioritize it or not, and the reasons that they prioritize it and why they prioritize other stuff over the top of that. There's tons and tons of stuff, and you can dig on those sorts of layers, can't you? But yeah, 100. I think the triangle that you've mentioned there, having those 3 key points that you can reflect on, look back on, and you also have a system, don't you, where you only permit yourself to maybe fall down on one or however that is. Just talk us.
Yeah, I've got like it's all come from really when I was writing the book. I wasn't dealing with life all that well, and I wasn't doing the triangle. In fact, it was more of a circle really. So I drank far too much. I was going through a divorce. I was writing the book. My PT business was shit, and everything was going. I ended up falling down the rocky road and trying to take my own life. Really, it got to one night. I went for a walk on a pub crawl, and I got to a point, and I must have been ill because I left half a pint to walk back. Then I come back, and it was that sort of. That really hit home, really reflecting when I was in hospital for 2 weeks afterwards, reflecting what I needed to do. And I came up with this sort of goal setting as such. And the only 2 rules that you asked about is never miss 2 on the trot. So it's fine missing a day. It's natural. Like if you work out, you don't fancy it, just don't miss 2 workouts on the trot. And never feel guilty for missing it because you can't do anything about it. And guilty is sort of like a pointless emotion. You can't do anything about what you've done. All you can do is moving forward. So they're the 2 rules that I run by, and it's working pretty well so far because the last 3 years I've got a full-time job now and loving my job with Pure Gym, and life is good. From I think it's 3-year anniversary coming up from that my relationship with the bridge.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me before, the way that you define it as the relationship with the bridge. Would you say that was sort of the defining moment, or the moment where you were like, right, I need something. I've got this mindset triangle. I understand it. I've created this concept, but I need something that's going to allow me that little bit of freedom to maybe permit myself to continue or move forwards, or how?
Yeah, I suppose it was just a bad time in my life, really, and I just let things. There wasn't one major thing that was making me have suicidal thoughts and stuff. It was lots of little things. Like I said, I was drinking far too much and never recovering from that. I just have another drink, and I should have known before, and I say the relationship with the bridge, just make a joke out of it because it needs to be a part of normal conversation. It shouldn't have that taboo around it. And when I do have talks, I talk about like months. I should have known something was happening because months before that, I used to mark bridges out of 10 on how good they were for suicide. Do you know what I mean? And it was probably my saviour, really. Well, it's bad because 3 months before that, I should have thought, hang on a minute, something's wrong here. But then it was my saviour, really, because I walked back from that pub to my 10 out of 10 bridge, which was probably about 2.5 miles. I must have gone over about 4 bridges to get to that 10 out of 10 bridge. So by the time I got there, I'd obviously sort of calmed down a lot, and then the police were called. But it's reflection, like we've mentioned. A lot of it's reflection about all the time. You need to reflect on quite a lot and don't let things build up, which I'm a stickler for. If things happen, I don't talk about it, and then all those little things will fill the stress bucket up, and then there's no release. So it's all on reflection and live into the triangle and practicing what I preach, to be fair, because I was writing the mindset triangle about these 3 things. I wasn't doing any of it.
Yeah, I think we can be guilty of that sometimes, can't we? With even putting pressure on yourself. There, you came up with this concept, you've come up with this idea, you've developed this theory, but then also the pressure of you not living to that every single day is probably something else that maybe built and added
completely
fuel to the fire.
Yeah. There's lots of little things. I can dissect it a lot. And try and pick out different things, what people said or what you did and stuff like that. But it's, like I said at the beginning of the interview, it's the same as that blame thing. Will it make any difference? No, probably not. The history is still there. I'm still stood on that bridge, still want to do what I did. I still had 2 weeks in hospital afterwards. And that didn't cure me. I still sort of had an attempt sort of a few months later down the line where I was still drinking and drank too much. And that was when I clicked my fingers the next morning and said, well, I'm not drinking anymore. And that's been I was sober for 18 months. And that was a massive thing for me because I didn't have that release. I had to have the release somewhere else. And that was through talking and communicating and reflecting and understanding myself. And I've got a much better relationship with alcohol now. Like on a Friday night, I might have a G&T with Henriette, but I won't have like 15 like I would have done beforehand. And if I'm feeling shit, I won't drink because obviously alcohol enhances that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's your understanding coming in then, isn't it? And I think for listeners that maybe have been in a similar situation or are finding themselves in similar situations, that quite a key thing that I've taken away from that is that it's not going to go away overnight, and it is going to be a process of you understanding yourself, that self-reflection, that self-awareness. It's a constant process of you understanding what it is and how you can use your experiences, or not even necessarily use your experiences, but identify them, because that then, like you said earlier on, allows you to close that door because you've understood it a little bit more. So would you say?
Yeah, it's never going to be a quick fix. Like diabetes isn't a quick fix. Do you know what I mean? If you've been diagnosed with a mental illness, and there might not be a fix. It's just a matter of doing the right things for you. Everybody's different. The one thing that I've learned in the mental health arena that I've worked in is that everybody's got a different story. There's not 2 people exactly the same for a mental illness. Yes, you might be diagnosed with depression or OCD and stuff like that, but they've got completely different stories. So it's finding your own thing to help. Like, for instance, meditation. I never in a million years would have thought it worked for me. And some meditation doesn't work for other people. Like the tablets I was on might not work for somebody else. Don't be disheartened if something doesn't work for you. The mindset triangle might not work for you, but don't be disheartened. Keep on looking for something that does work for you. And that's the most important
thing. That goes
thing.
with understanding yourself as well, then, doesn't it, mate? Just like you said before.
Completely, yeah. Which it's not. I suppose it's not giving up. I'm quite lucky in the sense that I'm very stubborn, so I won't give up in certain things. So I've always looked to help myself to be able to live with this. Don't get me wrong, there's days I just want to stay in bed and think like fuck depression or something like that. And I don't want to live like it anymore. But it's still having that, and there's always going to be like if like during this lockdown, I'll be completely honest with you, I've had 2 really bad cases of depression where like self-loathing and stuff because just I can't work it out. And whereas before I probably would have opened a bottle and down a couple of pints and felt instantly better, but my mindset now is, well, it's not going to last. I've just got to ride the wave. As long as I'm open with Henriette and say I'm feeling really shit and I'm really low, I don't really understand it, we'll get through it. Do you know what I mean? It's just riding that wave, knowing, and it's down to education. Like I said, education, experience. Because I did deal with it back in my 20s.
Do you think it's having to almost live with accepting that it's not going to, like, sometimes you just got to accept that it's not.
Oh, completely, mate. The first thing you need to do.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, the first thing you need to do if you've got a mental illness and been diagnosed, accept it. As soon as you accept something, you can do something about it. If you haven't accepted it, then you're never going to do something about it. Look at alcoholics. Until they stand up and say, I've got a problem, then they can sort it out. Otherwise, they're going to a meeting and thinking, well, I ain't really got a problem. I only have like 1 or 2. Do you know what I mean? It's the first thing you need to do is accept that you have a problem. And there's a lot of people out there that are ignoring these feelings they're having and that haven't accepted that they're different. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just the way they're wired up. It's the way they are. It's just a matter of living to a different way than you're normal, as our society likes to say who's normal and what's normal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that whole, I find it really interesting. I would like to understand a little bit more where you think it falls or how you think it works with people, as in, do they fall in, is it a spectrum, or is it, have you got it or you've not got it, or what do you think people have maybe traits of certain mental illness, or like, what are your thoughts?
Completely with, it's all, you can have situational sort of depression, which is like your grief, which is PTSD. It's because something's happened, or I'm a believer that sometimes it's just the way you're wired. Do you know what I mean? In like my case, maybe I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Been diagnosed with clinical depression, and I've not put my finger on it, and I have up and down days, and it's just the way I believe that some people are wired. I think OCD, for instance, it's a harrowing mental illness to have. It's absolutely awful. I've got a few friends with it, and it's just horrible in the sense that your brain can overtake the way that you act and everything. But like going back to what we said before about education and stuff, it's like we need to get away from people using the phrase, oh, that's just the OCD in me. It's not, mate. You just like a clean kitchen. You're not OCD. If you were OCD, you knew about it. It's getting away from that situation. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot. The stigma is being taken off it, but there's a damn sight lot more to do. And it starts with our media and the way we communicate about it. There's a lot of media that portray in a really bad way. Look at poor Caroline Flack.
Yeah.
Look at Aaron Lennon. Aaron Lennon had a bit of a, he was poorly when he played for Everton. And the first thing the Sun newspaper did, or a newspaper did, put 150 grand a week star, has a breakdown. What's 150 grand a week got to do with it? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate mental illness. It hits you or it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Whether you're on £1 million, Robin Williams, for instance, took his own life. Do you know what I mean? One of the probably most successful actors America had. But it's that stigma that we need to detach away from mental health or mental ill health, because there's nothing wrong with it at all.
Do you think that's starting to happen now?
Yeah, because you can, like, and the trouble is, there's bad press now saying that the NHS can't cope with the mental health cases. I think it's the fact the amount of mental health cases coming forward because of the education. They understand, well, hang on a minute, that I shouldn't be thinking that, and then they're going to get help, which is great. Do you know what I mean? But I think the communication's out there, and there's a lot of waiting lists, which is bad, but I think it's a good thing because there's more communication. There's more conversation. Look, us three are having a chat about male suicide and me having a stand on a bridge. I never would have done that 10 years ago, or you wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago. So it's definitely out there. I think the stigma is raising, which is good. But there's a lot to be done.
It's allowing people to. It's giving the people the realization that they can speak out now, and they can say, like, there's something that's in me that I probably need some help with, or I need to speak to somebody, or just need to say it to people. And I think you're 100% on the money with it. They might say it's an issue that there's too many people coming and speaking and saying stuff, but for me, keep talking, keep saying it.
Yeah. It's massive, and the biggest thing is, look, I keep on saying about education and the 50%. Is it 50%? Yeah, 50% of all mental health cases in the UK come at the age of 14. As you can imagine, when you're 14, you've got puberty, hormones, relationships, exams, everything's going on. But the worst statistic is it's taking up to 10 years to diagnose that person. It could be 24 when they get diagnosed. And that's because from the age of 14 to 20, they think they're absolutely normal and nothing's up with them. It's just a thought they have. Do you know what I mean? And that's what needs to be happening. We need to be getting into schools and talking and educating the kids as well as the parents about it all, so they can talk about it.
But that was my next question. To be fair, to almost wrap up, what do you think we could do better as a community, as a society, to start to move that forwards? And you touched on it there, schools and bringing that education forwards by a hell of a lot, because I think, as you rightly touched on there, even me thinking back to being at school, you almost sit there and you're like, yeah, all of this stuff is just teenage stuff. And I think that gets written off quite a lot. That statistic there about most of it being with 14-year-olds is frightening. So, in your mind, mate, what do you think we could do better as a group of people and as a society and communities to start to move that further forwards?
I think we're getting there. I've done quite a lot of talks in schools solely to 14, 15-year-olds, and it's the same as like I'm talking to you. It's very open, very frank. And like, for instance, I did about 10 presentations in the school, and I'd throw out different questions of understanding where they're from. And I'd say, what does OCD stand for? And it took 10 sessions for anyone to get it right. They said obsessive cleaning disorder. And that just shows you where the education isn't. Do you know what I mean? They just think it's a fun thing, and it's funny you have it. But then when you explain to it, they're like, Jesus. It's starting from an early age, from the age of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever like that, is teaching kids that you're allowed emotion. Do you know what I mean? You're angry for a reason. You're crying for a reason. Let's talk about why you're crying, rather than rather than stop crying or give you something to cry for. Do you know what I mean? What you're crying for, they're crying for a reason. So just talk to them about it, because that might manifest. That feeling they get might manifest to when they're older, and or something might happen as they're growing older. So, well, I can't tell anybody about that feeling because I'm not allowed to. Do you know what I mean?
It's crazy, mate, because I've got an 8-year-old, and that's something that I always encourage, for her to constantly tell me how she's feeling, where she's at, where her head's at. If she feels comfortable to then say, I'm not happy, then I will always ask why. What's made you feel that way?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I totally agree with you. I do feel like it's important to start early, because then they feel more confident, or comfortable is probably a better word for me to use, to then stress that I don't feel happy right now, or I feel emotional, I feel upset, I feel angry. And then when you ask a child to say more, they will do. They'll open up, and especially if they're interested, they'll ask all the questions, and they'll take interest into it. So I think it's a perfect time to start to ask and start to educate and support and help them when they're younger. I totally agree.
Things are happening, like the film Inside Out. If you've seen Inside Out, and it's a brilliant program, or sorry, brilliant film for kids to watch, to understand there's different feelings in the brain that's going to be popping out every now and again. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it's we've got a long way to go. Do you know what I mean? and we just need to make it normal conversation for everybody to have.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like you said there, the earlier that we can do that, the better. So coming on to the final part of the podcast today.
Is this where I get my This Is Your Life book?
That, yes, mate. Yeah, we're going to send. It should be with you now. If it's not with you now, then Amazon must have had it there, mate. I'm not sure.
To be fair, we have had an Amazon parcel delivered, so it might be just that.
There you go. Perfect. So yeah, massive thanks to you. Like it's been great to have you jump on and to open up and to share your experiences and what you've been through. We do finish up with a bit of a chat just to open things up a little bit and to see where your thoughts are for inspiration and that sort of thing. So the first question that we tend to go with, Mr. Love can shout that one out for you. Go for it, mate.
The guests. So you're hosting a dinner party. You've got 3 guests, living or dead, that you can invite to the dinner party. What 3 guests are they going to be, and why have you chose those 3?
Oh wow! How long have we got?
You can't have an egg in the middle of the table either and start kicking it and all of that sort of thing.
Oh right, okay. Right, okay. Oh Jesus.
Is he one of them?
Yeah. I'll go for Bradley Wiggins.
Good shout.
He's my idol, really, with reference to cycling and just his whole mentality, because he's had struggles, and hence why Dr. Steve Peters is so famous, because he was Bradley Wiggins' psychiatrist. So yeah, definitely him, because I'd like to know how he ticks away from the cameras. I'd probably have my granddad for a meal. To be fair, he died when I was 18. He didn't have a chance to see any of this, so I'd like to have a pint with him to tell what's been going on. And who else would I have? Oh, I'll have the Queen.
The Queen.
I'll have the Queen. I'm quite patriotic, and I love the royalty and the royal family and what it stands for in this country. So I'd like to have a pint of beer with her and sit down and talk to her, because I think she's a good crack.
Be interesting to see how she drinks a pint as well, I reckon.
Do you know what? She'll probably drink it quicker than me.
So you've got your guests.
Yeah.
Big into your cooking. You do a lot of live cook-offs, and you talk about that a lot in your book as well, with your recipes and stuff that you have in there. So the next question is, you've got your guests. What are you going to serve them? 3 courses? All
3 courses. Well, I'm not really a pudding man. I've been known to have like chicken wings for pudding and Wetherspoons before. For starters, I'd probably go with not ravioli, but handmade pasta, raviolo, or whatever you call it. What do you call the one? Ravioli? Is it raviolo?
Not sure, mate. Ravioli sound. It comes in a tin. The last time I saw it, so
it doesn't surprise me where you're from, is it? Yeah, just the one ravioli that you see in MasterChef. And what we're really into at the moment, Henriette and I, are a ramen.
Yes.
I'm cooking some stonkers of them at the moment. I did a chili one the other day with marinated tuna steak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Decent.
Oh, then for pudding, chicken wings. Yeah.
To be fair, watching the Queen sit and eat chicken wings with a pint of beer would definitely be worth recording.
That'd be class. Yeah.
That would be good, wouldn't it? That'd be a good big brother, that would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And finally, you're stranded on a desert island. You can take one album and one musical album only. Which one would you take?
The Enemy Will Live and Die in These Towns.
Never heard of that one, mate. So you'd have to educate me. Go for it.
The Enemy are from a band from Coventry.
Oh, okay.
So I sort of through my 20s had it and just become a fan really. And I've been to see them, and they've split up now. They couldn't sell any more. But he does that album now, but just acoustic sets, like the smaller clubs, like the old Carlin Academy, O2 Academy is called now, isn't it? So I'm taking my son for his first gig in September to go and watch him. But yeah, it's an awesome album. It's a bit like not too far off The Who.
Oh, okay, yeah. Similar sort of tunes and
yeah,
decent. Okay, amazing, mate. So again, massive thanks from us for jumping on, mate. It's been really, really good to hear. It's great to have you on, just being open. I think that's going to be great for a lot of people to sit and listen to, and hopefully even help their own mindsets and see where they're at. If people do want to jump on and purchase your book as well, then we'll link you in. So anyone that wants to catch up with Stu, by all means, just jump on there and catch up with him. His book is a great read, so please do jump on that. For the listeners subscribing, if you click down in the bottom corner, you'll be able to get an update every time that we release an episode in future, which will save you then having to trawl through YouTube for an hour trying to find whichever one it is that you're after. So thanks again, listeners, for jumping on, and we'll catch you all in future. Have a great day, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks, guys.